Hi everyone. This tutorial is about the new features found in the Dolby Atmos Composer version 1.5. This version is a huge leap forward in Atmos content creation since it is the only Dolby Atmos tool letting you process your Dolby Atmos mix as a whole through a sophisticated mastering compressor called Gravitas. Gravitas is a separate product, and by purchasing it, you get Gravitas as a plugin and as a module that runs inside the Dolby Atmos Composer. Gravitas is a very powerful and flexible dynamics processor. And you're not just limited to using it on an Atmos mix session. You can actually pull up any previously exported Dolby Atmos ADM BWF file and easily apply Gravitas's processing to it if you so desire. Now, before we start looking into this new and exciting feature, let's have a look at the other new features coming with the Dolby Atmos Composer version 1.5. Firstly, there are new layouts available for monitoring, multi-channel re-renderer export, and loudness measurement. For monitoring and re-renderer export, the new formats include 9.1.4, 7.1.2, and stereo direct. Loudness measurement is now found on the master channel page and can be done with the new format stereo direct. Speaking of loudness measurement, if you have imported an ADM BWF file, you can now do a quick loudness measurement without having to play the entire file and wait until the end. Just click the Measure ADM button and Composer will measure your file at maximum speed. It's a real time saver. Note that the loudness measurement includes any modules that are included in the master channel. This makes adjusting your ADM BWF files and checking their loudness levels a breeze. The master channel sits directly before the Dolby Atmos renderer, but after all the incoming connections have been mixed together. So the channels of the mix pass through the module chain in the master channel, and then the processed mix is leveled by the master gain parameter. After that, the mix goes through the Atmos renderer where the rest happens, including loudness measurement. This means that if no modules are added, Composer works like it always has. An interesting side note is that there are actually two chains in the plugin version of Dolby Atmos Composer. One chain is for the mix that you are working on, while the other one is for any ADM BWF files that you have loaded. Having both of these chains available is handy if you want to jump back and forth between a current mix and a previously exported render. Now let's add our first module to process the mix. What we're doing here is just like putting a plugin on a master track in your DAW. Currently, the only module available in Composer is Gravitas. Once the module is added, it's automatically given a name by the Dolby Atmos Composer, which of course you can customize to whatever you like. Let's do that now. Next, you'll see buttons for opening the editor of the module, for configuring automation parameters, and for bypassing and deactivating the module. You might also notice a 0 samples here, which means that the module currently produces a latency of 0 samples. This number can change depending on how you've set the look ahead parameter inside Gravitas. We'll cover this parameter in the main Gravitas tutorial, but the main point here is that you can see the delay induced by this module. Note that in cases when latency is greater than 0 samples, bypassing will not change the latency time, while deactivating the module will eliminate any latency. This is because bypassing simply bypasses the module while keeping it in place, whereas deactivating a module takes the module completely out of the chain. At the bottom of the module list, you'll find master latency, which is the latency of the entire module chain. Currently, the maximum possible latency is 192,000 samples. But not to worry. If there is any latency, all incoming panning data is compensated so that everything remains synchronized. Now, before we open the editor of Gravitas, let's take a look at the automation button. In this menu, you can dynamically assign a parameter of the module to an automation lane by selecting the lane from the drop-down menu. Master gain is on lane 1, so you'll notice that the lanes here start from number 2. Let's select input gain for lane 2. Now the drop-down menu shows that the input gain from the first module is on lane 2. If we now check the available automation parameters in our host software, we can see that the corresponding parameter has been named accordingly. That number before the bracket is the position of the module in the chain to which the parameter is connected. If you reorder the modules in the chain, these numbers change accordingly. Let's close the automation menu and open the editor of Gravitas. Now, we won't go into detail here because we have a whole separate tutorial describing all functions of Gravitas. That said, there are a few things that are worth mentioning about the module version of Gravitas, as they are slightly different to the plugin version. The first thing is the input configuration dialog. If you compare the plugin version of Gravitas to the module version, you'll notice that the input configuration dialog actually indicates what channel is what in our Atmos mix. First, we see the composite channels with their designations, and when we scroll to the end, we see the object channels. Hovering over the buttons reveals the complete name of the corresponding channel or connection in the mix. The functions of the different elements in the dialog are explained in the corresponding Gravitas tutorial, so have a look there to learn more about the input configuration. There's a link in the description. You can send an external sidechain into the composer, which will be available in all modules of the mastering channel. You can also link parameters of different Gravitas modules, just like you can with different instances of the Gravitas plugin. However, note that a Gravitas plugin and a Gravitas module cannot be linked with each other. Now let's close the editor. On the top of the master channel, we find the buttons for removing and reordering modules, as well as the presets section. Here you can save and load entire module chains, and this can really speed up your workflow. Now let's load an ADM BWF file. When we check the monitoring page, we can see that there are several beds and objects. Let's go to the master channel and add a Gravitas module. As you can see here, there is no automation menu here because the playback of an ADM BWF file is independent of the mixing session. So let's have a look at the editor. You might notice that the button for external sidechain is gone. This is because sidechaining does not make sense when processing an ADM BWF file. Taking a look at the input configuration dialog, we can see the beds and the objects as our input channels. Let's close this dialog and have a look at the section in the processing module where the LFE level knob is located. When Gravitas is loaded as a module for processing an ADM BWF file, a display is shown next to the LFE knob. With the controls there, we can step through the LFE channels of the different beds in the file and adjust their output volumes. After unloading the ADM BWF file, the mixing session is shown to us again, and in the master channel we can see our module chain for that mix. And that's it for the new features. Please check out our tutorials about Gravitas, and if you like this tutorial, please give us a thumbs up and check out our other tutorials about the Dolby Atmos Composer. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon to not miss our latest news, tips, and updates. There's more to come, so I'll see you in the next one.